Well, hello, my name's Andy Tidy and welcome back to Canal Hunter. In this episode we're going to go and take a look around from Bloomfield Junction through to Deepfields Junction. So far in this series we've been following Brindley's second phase of canal building in the area, where he took the canal through from Spon Lane in the original Birmingham Canal and took it all the way through to the Staffs and Worcester at Wolverhampton. This section was built in 1779 to 1773, and as so often with the Brindley canals, he followed the contours, and at this particular point he went around Summer Hill. This route is 4¼ miles, but if we take the New Line Canal, which was built later on, that's only 1¼ miles. The problem was Coseley Hill. Coseley Hill is high and it would involve an absolutely immense cutting or a deep tunnel. And for that reason, the canal builders decided to take the easy route. And what's more, by going out through Summer Hill and Wednesbury Oak, they were able to reach coalfields and ironworks which were already in existence. Ready-made customers for the new canal. Where I'm standing right now is the entrance to Bloomfield Junction. There's precious little to see on the ground, but if you look in the camera just along beside me, there's a curved piece of towpath and the edging is completely different from all the rest. And this was the entrance into the long lost loop. So in this episode, we're going to go and explore the old Wednesbury Oak Loop. That involves getting across to the far side of the railway and then through Bloomsbury and the extensive basins that were there. There was a huge railway interchange, and then we'll pick up the old line around Summer Hill and rejoin the navigable waterway near CRT's Braidley Works. So let's go and see what we can find. So we've crossed the Bloomfield Junction and through the Bloomfield Industrial Estate. This was a scene with big basins until 1967 when it was all filled in. And we're now standing on the remnants of the Tippington Colliery. The canal came in pretty much along the line where I'm looking now. It had a side basin running into this little hollow here, and then it continues on straight ahead to the left of Paul. And where Paul's standing is pretty much the site of Cedar Bridge, which carried the trackway through from the collieries through down a lane beside the basin. We've crossed Upper Church Lane, and the line of the old canal came through and carried on through the open ground beyond, curling around Summer Hill. As you can see, it's a very sharp slope, so it was hugging the contour all the way. Well, we've worked our way around to the far side of Summer Hill, and the line of the canal came between that new block of flats and where I'm standing now. It's a bit of a precipitous edge right now, as you can see. We're a good 20 to 30 feet up, and I suspect that the grading of the land has been sculpted away. It was still operational till about 1950, but the houses up here are 1930s, so the canal would have sat pretty much where my picture is showing at the moment. Right now we're looking at the old site of Parker Bridge. This is a bridge that spanned from the level where I am across the canal and into level ground beyond. It's hard to believe that this housing estate beyond used to have the land running across pretty much at the rooftop height, but that was undoubtedly the case. The old Wednesbury Oak Loop canal came through the trees, hugging this hillside for all it's worth, and disappeared through that gate over there. Interestingly, this was also the junction. I'm standing right on the junction of the old Ocker Hill Branch, and that branch continued out towards that blue turquoise building in the distance. And that branch was built to reach the old Ocker Hill pumping station. The Ocker Hill pumping station was lifting water up from the Walsall Canal to the Wolverhampton level. And the canal finished in twin arms, which would lie pretty much in the centre of the picture now. It's said that when the pumps were going at full tilt, the amount of water coming into the lower Ocker Hill branch was so strong that they couldn't get the boats out. They had to stop the pumps, pull the boats out onto the main line and then restart them. There are some amazing photos of the old Ocker Hill power station which followed the pumping station. This early section is completely lost. The land has been regraded. The land now sits probably 20 feet lower than it used to, but the far section pretty much follows St Mark's Road. We've finally emerged from the site of the Moat Collieries, and we're now coming out next to Asda's operations in Tipton, and the line of the canal followed the boundary exactly around here, which is the site of Schoolfield's Colliery, and beyond it takes us into the really complicated series of arms where there were collieries galore. So that's where we're going to go next. We've now entered the open ground which contains the Wednesbury Oak Loop. The original canal followed the line up through there, but we're going to follow this line, which was the branch leading out to the Rotten Brunt shortening. So the canal entered between the trees and the house and came round under my feet to a further junction with the Brady Locks branch. And you can see the branch tumbling its way down the hill. The Brady Locks branch drops through 8 locks and 82 feet down to the Walsall Canal below. Tempting as it is, I'm not going to explore it in this episode. I think we'll save that little gem for next time. I'm now standing in this huge open area behind Turton Road. And the original Brindley line followed the perimeter of this open ground, and you can see it right away in the distance. And in the distance there was another set of arms that went out beyond Batman's Road, and it followed its way around to about over there. The embankment I'm standing on now was built in 1849 and is known as the Rotten Brunt shortening. The bank actually represents the western side of the canal. The eastern bank has been profiled away, but it's very clear that this was the embankment across this shallow valley. This place was one enormous great area of coal pits. On the old maps they put a C for every colliery, and they are absolutely everywhere. And where there weren't collieries, there were ironworks, and none more famous than the ironworks of Iron Mad Wilkinson. Now he was based in Lower Braidley, so I think we'll pop over there and have a look at the site of his works. I'm now riding along the line of the Rotten Brunt shortening. You can see the upper bank off to my left. This is the canal bed, reducing the congestion at the far side of the Wednesbury Oak Loop. At this point the Rotten Brunt and the original line joined, with the old line of the canal coming down this footpath, and it curled around and followed the line of the car park to the rear of this factory. We're now deviating slightly off the line of the canal, which is up to our left, but running down in front of us in that stand of trees there was the privately owned Braidley Mar branch. This was a branch built before 1800, and it was notable because it contained 3 locks, 2 of which were a staircase pair, and that came down through the trees and led off in that direction. Braidley Mar was short-lived, because even on the maps dating from 1900 there were collieries over this end, and the far end was described as a disused canal. The original line of the canal came out behind these factories, under Top Bridge and through beyond that wall. Even here the line of the canal's been changed. The original line came through here, turned right under the bridge and went behind the workshop, and lying underneath the area where they now store all the lock gates, that was another basin, and this was the area which was home to Iron Mad Wilkinson. You may wonder why CRT are spending so much money dredging such an obscure piece of canal. Well, it's because this little branch line is actually really important. The pumps at Braidley continue to operate, and even today they're drawing up water from the old wine working 600 feet underground, and it represents one of the BCN's primary water supplies. This is the entrance to Lower Braidley Arm. The straight piece of canal behind me is a straightening, and the original line of the canal ran off to my left in a large loop past Wilkinson's ironworks, rejoining at the bridge you can see in the distance. And so we come to the end of this episode of Canal Hunter. We've finally reached the navigable waters of the Braidley Arm. But it'd be wrong to finish this section without a proper reference to John Iron Mad Wilkinson. He was a pioneer in the use of iron. He had huge foundries here. He learnt how to bore out cylinders, and these were used by Isaac Watts as an integral part of his steam engines that he was building just closer into Birmingham. He was even the prime mover in getting the bridge, Iron Bridge, approved. In fact, John Wilkinson had his roots over in Coalbrookdale, and that's where he cut his teeth in the iron trade. He established his first ironworks here in Lower Braidley in 1757. The original canal line was actually routed in order to come past his ironworks. He later expanded his works to include another couple of smelting furnaces and ironworks, and those stood on the site of CRT's Lockgate factory. Iron is usually made using a system of forced air to get the temperature super hot. That's normally achieved by using flowing water to power bellows, but here there is no flowing water, so the assumption is that he used his father's invention, which was an engine to provide the motive power for blowing air into his furnaces. He was a serial entrepreneur. He invented the idea of copper plating boats, which prevented the boat hulls from disintegrating with worms and other marine creatures. And then he went on and he bought copper mining interests in Cornwall, so not only could he plate the boats, he could also supply the copper for them as well. Not surprisingly, he was really successful, and by 1796 his combined enterprises were making a whole 1/8 of all of the iron made in the UK. But of course he wasn't just John Wilkinson, he was John Iron Mad Wilkinson. He was into anything that could be made of iron. He even donated a pulpit to the local Methodist church, that was made of iron, and he made a range of iron coffins. And, of course, in the end, he was buried in one. He even pioneered the use of iron in making boats, and he made canal boats. And there is strong speculation that he made his very first iron canal boat just up there in the Braidley works. Of course, all this enterprise left him a very wealthy man. In the end, he left an estate worth the equivalent of £10 million. But almost as if it was a Dickensian story, the beneficiaries of the will was contested, and his will ended up in what was known as chancery, which meant basically the lawyers raked over it time and time again, and by the end of 20 years, virtually the entire value of his estate was gone in legal fees, and the beneficiaries and the claimants hardly got a penny. As I say, it almost makes a Dickens story. Anyhow, that's enough of the Canal Hunter series for today. Next time we'll be coming back here to Braidley and we'll be exploring the Braidley Locks branch and the Gospel Oak branch. I'm at Braidley and I started at Tipton, so I think I'll return back using the existing canal and the newer line through the Coseley Tunnel, and I'll take a few video clips as we go. So I'll just ride my way out of this episode, and you can see a little bit more of the BCN that I love so much. So thank you for joining me. See you next time. Happy hunting. This is the northern entrance to the Wednesbury Oak Loop, or the Braidley arm now, and it comes in and joins the main through route from Tipton in that direction, Wilkinson and Wolverhampton in the other. In that last section we were travelling through the ironworks and the coalfields of Capenfield. We've now emerged onto the main line, and directly across we are looking at what was the site of Alfred Matty's boatyard. The canal used to extend for about half a mile back into the Deepfields brickworks, but more recently it was home to the Alfred Matty boat fleet, and they were the hauliers who were involved in the phosphorus trade that I mentioned in the episode based on Oldbury. We're now entering the cutting, which is taking us in towards Coseley Tunnel. Attempts were made to get the tunnel dug as far back as 1798, but nothing happened. The land was purchased, and in the end Telford suggested a huge cutting to be built, but that never came to anything either. So the idea hung and hung and hung until the congestion problems around Braidley became so acute that they decided they were going to dig it, and they dug out the cuttings on either side of the tunnel in 1829. This is the northern portal for the Coseley Tunnel. This tunnel had been dreamt about for many, many decades. The cutting approaches were dug out in 1829, but it wasn't until between 1835 and 1837 that money was invested and the tunnel was dug. And so we come full circle. We've returned to Bloomfield Junction, and the exit of the old Wednesbury Oak Loop that left under a bridge just under this curved piece of concrete.